Alright, section 11.1 talks about the quadratic function. Now we've already seen the quadratic function in 11.4. It's of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where you got a, b, and your c. Okay? And a quadratic function has, if you look at the graph, it has a couple of key points. The most important one is its vertex. The vertex is the low point or high point of your quadratic function. It's the place where it changes direction. And it's the most important point on your graph. There's also another point that they also point out, which is the axis of symmetry. It means that on both sides of the graph it's symmetrical. It's a mirror image of itself. And the axis of symmetry is always x equals the x coordinate of your vertex. So if you know your vertex, you can figure out the axis of symmetry as well. So if you want to identify the vertex, you just nail down what that point is. The point is 1, negative 3. Or here it's 2, 4. So it's just a matter of figuring out what that quadrant, that coordinate is, the x and y coordinate are. Now, x equals 2 is your axis of symmetry here. X equals 1 is your axis of symmetry there. Now, how do you find the vertex? Well, you take your a, b, and your c, and you plug it into this fraction, negative b over 2a. That will tell you the x coordinate of your vertex. Now, how do you find the y coordinate of your vertex? Take that answer and plug it into the function. And whatever answer you get is the y coordinate of your vertex. That's it. Alright. So here it says find the vertex for 2x squared minus 4x plus 1. Alright, so a is 2, b is negative 4, c is 1. So negative b over 2a is negative 4 over 2 times 2. Negative 4 is just 4, and the bottom 2 times 2 is 4. 4 over 4 is just 1. So your x coordinate of your vertex is 1. Now you plug 1 into the function. 2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 plus 1, and you multiply it out and you get negative 1. So that is your vertex, 1, negative 1. And if you look at the graph, you can verify that. Now, if you graph this on your calculator, you can find this low point. First you have to decide if it's a minimum or a maximum. This is a minimum, a low point. So you hit second trace 3 for minimum. You move to the left of the point, enter, move to the right of the point, enter, and move back to the point and hit enter, and it'll tell you what your vertex is. Now on this one, x squared minus 1, your a is 1, b is 0, c is negative 1. So negative 0 over 2 times 1 is just 0. Then you plug 0 into that, and you get 0 squared minus 1, which is negative 1. So your vertex is 0, negative 1. There you go. See that graph right there? That's your vertex at 0, negative 1. And your axis of symmetry is x equals 0. X equals the x coordinate. Right? And now, for this one here, you could graph that, and you're going to find out that it's going to be negative 1, 0. Okay? And so here's a couple other graphs and their vertexes, right? So it says use a graph to identify the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and whether the parabola opens upward or downward. Alright, well, you know it opens upward, okay? And you know your vertex is 1, negative 3, and your axis of symmetry is x equals 1. It opens downward since it's pointing down. Your vertex is 2, 4, and your axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Now, if you look at your quadratic equation, the a will determine which way this thing will point. If a is negative, it will point downward. If a is positive, it points upward. So the sign of your a, for your a, b, and your c, will determine which way this thing points. Alright? Now here it says, here's a function for maximum satisfaction from eating pizza, something like this, where x, I think, is the number of slices that you eat. And this will determine your satisfaction rate between 0 and 100%, right? And so it looks like your maximum satisfaction is after eating 4 slices of pizza. You get 100% satisfaction there, right? But in order to find that, you can find the vertex, this top maximum point, where your A is negative 6.25, your B is 50, and your C is 0. So negative B, or negative 50, over 2 times negative 6.25, which gives you 4. And so after 4 pizzas are eaten, that's when maximum satisfaction has been achieved. Alright? So if you ever want to find a maximum or minimum value, they're asking you to find the y-coordinate of your vertex. So you have to first find the x-coordinate of your vertex. So you have to find negative b over 2a and plug that into the function. And whatever answer you get, that is your maximum or minimum value. It's a maximum or minimum based on which way it's pointing. Remember, if a is positive, it points upward and it's a minimum. If a is negative, it points downward and it's a maximum. Now it says find the maximum height for when a baseball is hit into the air after t seconds. And so you got to figure out negative b over 2a based on your a, b, and your c here. And you get 3. After 3 seconds, the ball has reached a maximum height. And what is that maximum height? Well, you got to plug 3 into the function, and you get 147 feet. Okay? If they give you a formula that talks about revenue, you can figure out when revenue is maximized by finding the vertex. And same idea over again, finding negative b over 2a and plugging that into the function. Again, the maximum or minimum value is found when you find the y-coordinate. Alright. Now they talk about transformations of graphs. If a is greater than 1, it's going to go up. It's going to shoot up faster. If a is negative, it's going to point down or point down faster. And if a is less than 1, it gets wider. It gets wider if a is less than 1. If a is greater than 1, it gets more narrow. All right. So let's do a few problems here. 11.1, question number 26. It says, use the given graph to evaluate the expression f of negative 2. So you find out where negative 2 is, and you move up or down until you hit the function. And right there, that's at y equals 4. So f of negative 2 equals 4. 2 is negative 4. Okay? 27, f of negative 3. Here's negative 3, and you move up or down until you hit it, and it's right there at negative 2. f of 1, here's 1, and you move up or down until you hit it, and that's at negative 2. Okay, and number 30 says identify the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and whether it opens upward or downward. Well, the vertex is at 0, 4. Axis of symmetry is x equals 0, and it opens downward. Alright. Number 31, same idea. Question, vertex is at negative 2, 3. Your axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2, and it opens downward. Alright. And now 33, they say identify the vertex, axis of symmetry, graph it, and evaluate it at minus 2 and positive 3. Alright, well, you've got 1/2 x squared, so your a is 1/2. You don't have a b term or a c term, so b is 0 and c is 0. So x equals negative b over 2a is negative 0 over 2 times 1/2. 2 times 1/2 is just 1, but negative 0 over 1 is just 0. And when you plug 0 into the function, 1/2 times 0 squared is 0. So your vertex is 0, 0. And your axis of symmetry is x equals the x-coordinate, or x equals 0. Alright? And then they ask you, I think, to figure out where f of negative 2 is and f of positive 3 is, which I don't think I did there. F of negative 2 is 1/2 times negative 2 squared, which is 1/2 times 4, which is 2. F of 3 is 1/2 times 3 squared, which is 1/2 times 9, or 9/2. Alright, and so that's 33. Okay, 37, same type of question here. Where's 37? I think we already did that one. 33. I guess we're going back to number 21. What's question number 21? Question 21 says, here's the quadratic formula. It says find the vertex of the parabola. Alright? So in 21 you got your A is negative 0.3, your B is 0.6, your C is 1.1. So you plug in those A, B, and C's into this fraction and simplify it and you get 1. Then plug that coordinate into the function to find the Y value. And so there's your vertex, 1, 1.4. Right. Number 83 says match the situation with the graph. Alright, so it says 83, the height y of a stone thrown from ground level after x seconds. So if it's thrown from ground level, it starts out at 0 height. And all the rest of these start out at a certain positive height, so it has to be d. Okay. 84, the number of people attending a popular movie X weeks after it's open. Well, you would assume that the popularity would be high initially and it would wane as weeks go by because fewer people would want to see it after the hype in the initial weeks. 85 says the temperature after X hours in a house where the furnace quit and then a repairman fixes it. So if a furnace quits, it gets colder, and then when they fix it, it gets warmer again. And then 86, U.S. population from 1800 to present. That's this one here. It's the only one that's left, which is C. 89 says the baseball is thrown upward with a velocity of 66 feet per second, or 45 miles per hour, and it's released 6 feet above the ground. Its height h after t seconds is given by this formula. After how many seconds does the ball reach a maximum height, and estimate the height? So when they give you the quadratic equation, you just plug in your a, b, and your c into this equation here to find out what the x coordinate is. And then you plug that into the function itself to find the y coordinate. So after 2.0625 seconds, it reaches a maximum height of 74.0625 feet. Alright. Number 91. 91 or 95. Let me see if I can find 95 here. 95 shows a river, and you've got a fence here where there's no need for a fence along the river, just these two sides here and this longer side here. And they've got 1,200 feet versus fences. What's the dimensions of the rectangle that will give a maximum area for the rectangle? Alright, so you don't need any fence on this third side. Okay, and whatever side these are, it's going to be the same x, and this is going to be a different length y. And we want to maximize the area, so our area is x times y, right? But our fence is 1,200 feet, and it's going to be x plus y plus x, or 2x plus y is your 1,200. So, if you know 1,200 equals 2x plus y, and you can substitute into here for y, solve this first one for y by bringing the 2x over here, and take this and plug it into there. If you know y equals that, plug that in place of y, and now you've got a quadratic equation with only one variable x. And now you've got your a, b, and remember your c here is 0. And you plug all that in and you get x coordinate of 300. And then you plug that into the original problem here to find the y value, and it's 600. So your dimensions are 300 by 600 for the dimensions of the fence. Alright. 100 shows study of the effect of temperature on the growth of melon seeds, and they give you an equation here that tells you the height measured after a fixed period of time. X is the temperature, and f of x is the height of the growth of the melon seeds. All right, and they want to find the temperature that gives the maximum height, I believe. Yeah, what temperature will give the maximum height for the melon seeds? Right. So they ask you to graph it with these window settings of 20, 40, 5, 0, 30, 5. Okay, and this is your equation. And when you graph it, it looks like this. So you can see it has a maximum here, somewhere around 30 degrees or so. And now they say estimate graphically what it is, and you can ask that with your calculator. You can do second trace 4 for maximum, move to the left, enter, move to the right, enter, and move back to the center, enter, and it gives you approximately these numbers here. Then part C says find the greatest height, right? So now you're doing it using these numbers here for A, B, and C. Plug those into negative b over 2a, and you get this guy here, and then plug that into the function, and you get that guy there, and so that is your height, and it does match with what you found using your calculator screen at least. Right. 98 is an interesting one. It says how big your TV should be in inches based on how many feet you sit from the screen. So they say, what if you sit 12 feet from the screen, how big should your TV be? So X is how many feet you sit from the screen, and you plug a 12 in there, and you get 56.372 inches in diagonal is the size of your screen. And now 37, where's number 37? 37, they give you minus 3x squared plus 1. They say identify the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and graph it. Alright, so A is minus 3, B is 0, C is 1. So you get 0 for your x, and you plug that in, and you get 1 for your y, so there's your vertex. And your axis of symmetry is always x equals the x coordinate of your vertex. And this is what your graph looks like, and it points downward. And they ask you to plug in minus 2 and positive 3 in there. And we do all that. And same thing with number 39. 39 is a little more complicated though. They give you this guy here. Now if you're going to plug your A, B, and your C into it, you got to multiply this guy out first. You got to multiply x minus 1 times x minus 1. So you get x times x is x squared. You get x times minus 1 is minus x. You get minus 1 times x is minus x. You get minus 1 times minus 1 is 1. And these two give you a minus 2x. Now you got A is 1, B is negative 2, C is 1, and there you go. You do all your math like you did before. And you get a vertex of 1, 0. Axis of symmetry is x equals 1. There's your vertex, there's your graph, there's your axis of symmetry. And when you draw the axis of symmetry, you draw it with a dotted line, by the way. And they plug in a minus 2 and a positive 3 there for that one. 41, same idea here. You just got to multiply this guy out. This guy times itself gives you all this stuff, and you hit it with a negative sign as well. And then once you know your A, B, and your C, you plug them in to get your x coordinate. You plug that into the original function to get the y coordinate, and there's your vertex. And they ask you to plug in minus 2 and positive 3 as well. 43, same idea. There's your A, B, and your C. You can figure out your vertex, plug that in to figure out your y coordinate of your vertex, and your axis of symmetry is x equals the x coordinate. And they ask you to plug in minus 2 and positive 3. 91 is probably the trickiest one of the entire bunch. 91 says, an agency is promoting concert tickets by offering a group discount rate. The regular price is $100, and for each ticket bought, the price drops by $1. So one ticket costs 99, 2 tickets cost 98, and so on. So the graph is shown here. What is the maximum revenue? Well, the ticket price is 100 minus x, where x is how many tickets are purchased. So if that's the ticket price, x is how many tickets are sold, this times this will give you the revenue, right? Number of tickets times the price per ticket. So price per ticket is $100 minus the number of tickets sold, because each ticket that's sold will drop the price down by another $1. So 100 minus x is your ticket price times the number of tickets. So now you multiply that out, write it in descending order, and there's your A, B, and your C is going to be 0. And if you look for your vertex here, your vertex is 50, $2,500. And so 50 tickets is when you're going to get maximum revenue, and your maximum revenue is going to be at $2,500. That's a tricky question. It's probably the hardest one in the bunch. Alright, so on most of these here, they ask you to find the vertex, the axis of symmetry, whether it points up or down. Remember, if it points down, A is negative. If it points up, A is positive. The vertex is negative B over 2A and f of negative B minus 2A. And then everything else is the same. It's just over and over asking you to do the same thing over and over again. So it's just a matter of finding the vertex. And remember, to find the vertex, you just type in the quadratic equation into your calculator. Right? So let's say you type in, let's pick one that's reasonable here. Like 2x squared plus 6x subtract 3. So if you zoom 6, this is your graph, and there's your vertex, and it has that is a minimum. So how do you find the minimum vertex there? You hit second, trace, and you choose minimum for 3. Now if it was the maximum, you'd choose 4. So you move to the left of the point, you hit enter, move to the right of the point and hit enter, and move back to the point itself and hit enter. And there's your answer, negative 1.5, negative 7.5. And you can do that for any of these problems. You can graph these all using your calculator.